play and I love it so much. I want to publish it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, well, thank you. So I've signed the contract. She's got the text. I'm just waiting to hear from her PR people so I can send my bio and my headshot, and it's happening. So, and I wrote to her and I said, if you had said you liked the play, that would have been great, but you said you loved it. I'm like, hooray. And she wrote back, she said, I can't wait to start promoting it. So
Oh,
this is a big dream, obviously a big dream come true. So
yeah.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
just
So
dropped
So
out of the
lovely.
sky. It dropped out of the sky.
yeah, well,
Just
I mean,
awesome.
with some help,
After, like, overnight
with a
success
little help
after a
with
lifetime.
some friends. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a saying in the theater that every overnight success is 15 years in the making. But I'm a bit of an overachiever, so in my case, it's more like 30 years in the making. So,
Yeah, I can relate, my friend.
but thank you for
Awesome.
asking, Jeff. It's very kind of you to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should start every day telling the story because you are absolutely glowing at this moment.
Right? Yes.
Thank you.
Accessing the magic. It's
Lovely.
wonderful. It makes such a difference. Are we tapping into the possibilities and the flow of wonderful things, or are we looking at, like, what's going south?
Right. Which is
So
easy to look at, easy to focus on.
so easy. It's so attractive. Yes.
Yeah.
And scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So hooray, we're here.
Oh, yeah.
Technology seems to be king. It only took us half an hour. So thanks so much for your patience, everybody. So we're going to start with just a little meditation, and then Claire, and you guys know the drill. Claire and I will just talk, and you'll all talk and about our focus for today, which is being love you want. So just a minute of saying
I have
hello, making sure we're
I
not just
I have one
hello.
question. I've
Yeah,
got an announcement that says the content of this meeting is being sent to a third party. Is that okay?
yeah, I'm videoing this privately on YouTube so it can be used later.
Okay.
Yeah, the point of this conversation is that we're sharing what's happening this month in Bloom. So if you're willing, that's great.
That's fine.
So thanks for asking, Jen. So the earth is supporting us, and we're not just heads on a screen. We have bodies. So feel your body and feel the chair and breathe. Notice, feel your breath. Good. So we like to start our practice with having the body and the body's senses help us be here now with. Because when things are tough, and even sometimes for some of us, even when they're not tough, it's we want to leave. We want to be in yesterday and tomorrow. We want to be in the heavens. We want to be with our best friend fishing, like whatever, instead of right here now. Good. And the gravity of the situation is pulling us in. Gravity's pulling us in for a hug. And let yourself perceive that. And we're being pulled all the way to the center of the earth by wonderful gravity. And our bodies are connected to the earth. And then bring our attention to the center of the head. So that's behind the eyes and up a little, and to the center, behind the third eye, between the ears and up a little, under the crown, above the palate. And rest your attention there, and rest your eyes, your physical eyes. Cannot look back there. Good. And then if you were sitting in a Barcalounger in the center of your head, just put the Barcalounger back. Rest. And slip farther back into the center of the head. Into rest in your prayer closet, just you. I know that we're chatting and we're playing. There's other people here virtually, but just rest in the center of your head. Just rest in your own prayer closet. Just you in your body with the divine experience, sacred presence. And rest your eyes. Good. All right, and so let's intend to stay here, resting in and with the body, here and now and with, supported by the earth, as we have this conversation about love, which can be stimulating. We're living in interesting times, and we always are, but it feels very interesting right now. So I just like us to be able to stay here in the center of the head, neutral, amused, spiritually focused, as we say hello to the ups and downs and ins and outs of what it is to be human and experiencing love spiritually, physically, in our souls, what it's like for you. And I hope it is a little stimulating. I hope it is. I hope it's like, hey, I want to experience more love, or I want to experience love, but there's a lot of hate going on. There's a lot of judgment going on. So anyway, here we are, and we're saying hi to Miss Claire, who is sharing with us today. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Wendy, and everybody.
So before we get started, into the juice, I'd love to hear just a couple minutes, Claire, about, we're here talking about love, sacred love, and we're also here, like how we're here talking about how this practice works and how this practice works for you and what's possible in this practice and the ins and outs, the ups and downs. It's not like we're saying everything is perfect, everything is easy. We're not feeling not saying that. But we're having our own experience. So what is your experience with this kind of practice, Claire?
I thought you said you didn't want to get into the juice right away.
I mean, like, what's your training? What's your how long you've been doing this?
Oh, okay. My psychic resume.
Yes. What's your psychic resume?
I've been visiting psychics since I was in my 20s. So we're talking quite a few decades here. And it took me a while before I got to the point where I realized, oh, so this is not something that I outsource to somebody. I go for a reading and you tell me what's what. But this is a practice that I get to be part of. And I'm growing in my spiritual practice, and very much with your help, Wendy, because I will say this for anybody who's watching: Wendy is extraordinarily gifted at letting you have you. So that's an amazing aspect of working with Wendy, is that and I have to say, in all honesty, I've had moments where I'm like, she'll say, so what are you noticing right now? And I'm like, oh God, can't you just do it? Why do I have to weigh in here? But it's one of the gifts of working with Wendy, is that it's always yours. So she guides and helps and reflects and mirrors and reads. And yesterday I think we had a session yesterday, and at the very end of it she said, well, I hate to make you feel bad, but it's in your hands. I'm like, oh God. Oh God. But it always is. It's always in our hands, and she is a very, very adept at reminding us of that. How's that for my psychic resume?
That's beautiful, Claire. What so my main training was at CDM, and you had some of the what I call core training. You had some of the core training with people who trained at CDM.
Exactly, right.
Up in Vancouver.
Yes, exactly. That's correct. And then once I moved down here to Seattle, I would go every 6 months for a reading with there were some folks doing from CDM who were in the church in Ballard, And
Yeah.
they were kind of operating out of there. And then when they wrapped that up, I would drive up to Everett. So, and have readings and, you know, healings there. And then you started at Psychic Awakenings, and that's when I met you.
Yes. And it's funny because I was at the church in Ballard that, you know, I lived 2.5 blocks from there on purpose. I started training there and then they closed it. So we were there at the same time, but we didn't know each other.
That's interesting.
And then, yeah, and then I trained it in Everett forever.
Well, I
driving up
did
there.
figure out, because I looked back through some of the booklets of my old readings, I did figure out that you read me twice while you were a student. I was like, oh, who's this Wendy person?
So funny. But we got close when I worked in Queen Anne at the Blue House.
Exactly.
And since then you've done at least a couple of group things with me, as well as lots of private work. Lots of private work.
Right.
Yeah.
For which I'm very
Awesome.
grateful.
Okay. Yeah, me too. So I just want to say about Claire that Claire really does her work and she just keeps doing it. And it's really, I was thinking about this yesterday about how, you know, some people come and they do a little and then they leave. And some people just keep going and hit stuff and keep going. We call it, you know, sometimes we hit a picture, we're like, this isn't how it should be. I think it should be this, and they're doing that, so I'm done. We call that hitting a picture. And some people are just like, I've gotten what I want, and it's fine. You know, I just wanted to stop suffering so much, or I just wanted to be able to transition in my relationship or understand something. And, you know, it's like, it's all good. But other people like Claire, like just keep going to the next level. And it's such a joy to watch you do what you do.
Thank you. I did hit a picture in Everett, actually, and that's why I stopped going there and I happily wound up with you. I had a student reading, which I love because they're sort of they're not like, here's 50 minutes and you can ask questions at minute 45, right? But I had this lovely student reading. this one lovely student said to me, "Oh, you have a beautiful heart." And I'm like, okay, but I'm here to work. Thank you. I'm here to heal some stuff. That's all very well.
Oh, Claire, that's so funny.
Anyway, that was the picture.
I want somebody to kick my ass. Let me try someone else.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's great. Okay, so I'm just gonna say what we're focusing on. Jen already read it for us before we were on tape, but I'm just going to read it again. And you guys just notice for yourself where the juice is for you, especially you, Claire. So our focus this month, it's about, I'm calling it graceful fruiting. This is a 6-month set of foci that we're doing, all to set us up to stand for who we are and what we want in this time of intensity. And so this is the 5th month. Next month, by the way, I believe I'm going to be talking to Jen about sacred democracy and how, from a place of we are all equal, how can we contribute in our own way, in our life and in our shared community, collaboratively. So that's kind of the cherry on top next month. But this month is really about the fruit. And we can talk about, it could be anything. It can be divine presence or sacred truth or sacred beauty, right? We can say it any way, but the most accessible way, especially in February, the most accessible way for most people is love. People are told, oh, God is love. People are told the answer is love. When you have a certain kind of relationship, you'll have made it. So there's a lot of focus in our culture about love. So here we go. Being the love you want, tasting and seeing the oneness, sacred oneness that is a spiritual reality, receiving and giving, being and doing, transforming soul, body, life, world in the experience of love that's most delicious for you. Finding within what you need and what want most deeply from inside out, releasing habits of striving and struggling for it from out there. So that's a lot to unpack. So, did you come with something that you wanted to share in this realm, Claire?
I did. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, as I've been kind of thinking ahead of time about this gathering, the first thing that I want to say is that love is often thought of as an emotion, and I don't think it is that. I think it's a state of being. And so there is a very famous psychologist by the name of Paul Ekman. And years ago, I mean, it's now decades ago, he went into the jungles of New Guinea. And his mission was to determine whether there are emotions that are born with us, so hardwired. And I think he was following in the footsteps of Margaret Mead, but he challenged her on some of her findings. What he was looking for people who were not affected by civilization too early on. And he came up with the idea, and it's been tossed around, but hasn't been really majorly challenged since he did, that there are 6 basic emotions that we are born with, and they are not learned. They are not they're not socially modeled. They come with us. And the 6 that he identified are happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and wonder.
Wow.
So those are the 6 basic emotions. My husband, who's a mask guy, actually has a set of masks for those 6 basic emotions. I think somebody's tried to add a 7th one, and they may well be right. But I mean, disgust, you can see, is kind of like, well, you've got to be born with that, because otherwise you might eat something that can kill you. Right? Mm-hmm. So there has to be that kind of like, that's not good. Anger, well, I have a new grandchild, and when she gets hungry, let me tell you, oh, is she mad about it? Oh, I don't feel good. Happy and sad, I mean, you can see where those are they come with us. Yeah. Fear, obviously, is another. It's also an adaptive emotion. Like,
totally, yeah.
Oh, I maybe should get out of the way of this creature with claws and teeth. And wonder, again, my new grandchild, I see it all the time, that she's like, you show her a finger puppet and she's like, what's that? What is that? She's constantly looking around the world going, what is that? Right. So I think our capacity for awe is inborn. But you notice that not one of those emotions that he labeled is called love.
Yeah.
Because what I do really feel, I remember thinking this, because of course, early in my marriage relationship, I was infatuated with my husband, right? And we all know that doesn't last forever. Yes. But I think that's what a lot of people associate with the idea of love, is like, oh, my heart's beating faster and this person is so magical. And that's like, that's infatuation. But I found myself as a married person with children and a household and, an actual husband, realizing that I wasn't feeling that anymore. Thank God. I mean, it's nice to have a couple of times in one's life, but
yes,
but I was in love.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, I was in love was all around me and I was in it.
Yes.
So it wasn't, it wasn't a heart racing, breath coming short kind of thing. It was just I was in a state of love with my children, with my husband, with my life. So for me, the phrase "in love" has just taken a whole new meaning. And when I'm not in love, then I'm in hell in some ways. I'm in
Yes.
despair, or I'm in, you know, angst, or I'm in depression, but I'm not in that place where I just feel like, all right, life is good.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I came with.
I love that, Claire. You touched on so many points that I feel like are really important.
Okay.
The whole infatuation thing, right? Like
Mhm.
that was basically my favorite addiction
Mm.
for most of my life. I mean, and let's be real. And now, like you, I'm just like, oh no. Like, I don't know. Would I throw it out of bed? Maybe not. But like, but I really see there's like what I see is that there's a dark side to that. There's
Mm.
a selfishness of it's a using.
Mhm.
It can be used to use people
Mm.
instead of to serve people.
Mm.
Um, and um, and certainly in our culture, like if people aren't experiencing that infatuation or that in loveness, and a lot of people use it as an excuse to be just like, okay, well, this has been fun, but I'm going to a new restaurant.
Mhm.
Done with this restaurant.
Yeah.
And whatever, whatever. But like, does that really square? So anyway, infatuation, I believe, is a really important thing to put on the side and say, also, there's all kinds of things like we're not really seeing them in infatuation.
Right.
It's some kind of really hall of mirrors that's going on.
Mhm.
And it's not until after that that we start to see our whole self and their whole self. And then it gets really interesting
Mhm. Mhm.
and not as fun, but also deeper. Can you talk about that, Claire? Also
Well,
deeper?
I think, yes, also deeper in the sense that, you're right. A lot of people will sort of go, well, this isn't fun anymore and it must be you. So off I go. And of course, what they're ignoring is, um, wherever you go, there you are. Right. So, um, a lot of people wind up having second, third, whatever marriages because, oh, surprise, surprise, I'm in the same pattern. Um, how could that be? I thought it was so and so.
Right.
I I have a little story to tell on myself. Um, a couple of years ago, I was at my one of my dearest friend's wedding. This was her third major relationship, and her daughter was her bridesmaid, and her daughter's boyfriend was, wonderfully present, helping create the ceremony and manage everything on the day. So I was standing chatting with the boyfriend and with another friend of my friend, and Dexter was standing there, and I said, like you say at weddings, like, well, so when can we expect you and Alexa to get married? And he said that standard thing like, oh, we don't need the piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I said,
Right.
well, Dexter, in my best well young man kind of Maggie Smith mode, right? The piece of paper is not, of course you don't need the piece of paper when you're happily in love.
Right.
The piece of paper, and more to the point, this gathering of people, of
Yes.
witnesses
Yes.
supporting your union, you need that not on the days when things are going well. You need it on the day when you want to drive a butcher knife into your partner's back and then step over their bleeding body in the kitchen. That's when you need to stay married.
Yes.
Right? And his eyes got very wide and the other young lady's eyes got very wide. I'm speaking as a married woman, and I'm going to take a heap of credit for this. Within 1 year, he proposed to Alexa, and they were married.
Wow.
That's the reality. It's like, yeah, of course you don't need the piece of paper when everything's tickety boo, right?
Yeah.
You need it to keep you married through the tough stuff, and there's always going to be tough stuff. If you hang in there long
Yeah.
enough, it's always going to be tough.
Yeah, if there's not, what's going on? There's something very strange going on if there's not tough stuff.
Well, exactly, because I think that, marriage, like many deep relationships, it brings up the deepest stuff in you to confront and deal with. And as you have pointed out, like, people have a choice at that point. They can run away and say, this isn't very happy, I'm divorcing you. Or they can go, this is the work.
Yes.
This is the
Yeah.
work. And this has been presented to me by the depth of my commitment to this relationship.
Yes. Right
So
here. Right here is pain. And I'm looking at it. We're all old here. We're all people in this call. We've all are in long relationships. And it's a very painful thing.
Yeah.
So it's very relatable here. I don't know who else is going to see, but I can just say for me, it really helped. The paper, it just sounds like a lot of pain in the neck, the paper, but we had a commitment ceremony without the paper, and then we did paper after because that privilege. But I remember like 10 years into our relationship, all hell beyond my wildest dreams, hell. And I remember it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wrote to the to the 10 people who were involved with standing up for us and said, we're in trouble.
Mm.
And I don't like to do that. Like, I was far into the hell. I was just like, but like, we really need help. And because like, yeah, how do you stand up in front of everyone you know and care about and say, this is the thing, and then be just like, oh my God, I don't know. I'm going to die. And it's that death and resurrection thing, I think. It's just like I had to get over how I thought, who I thought he was, who I thought I was, how I thought it should be. I had to die to all that crap to go on
Mhm.
over and over.
Mm.
But especially a few big times, especially one extraordinarily big time. So nobody, and we're always like, I'll just say this and then we'll go back to you, Claire, or if somebody else wants to share. When we first got together, we had danced together at a few different dances around New Jersey, and then we really got together at a New Jersey folk festival up in the YMCA camp, and we danced contra dance up and down the line. Like people were saying, you're setting off the fire extinguishers. Like we were just like on fire up and down that line, dancing with each other and everybody else, like bringing life and love and excitement and beauty. Like it was extraordinary. I look back, I'm just like, and every now and then I'm like, as we're doing, effing taxes, or if we're, having a conflict or like whatever, like, oh, I've acted like an ass and I need to clean it up. I'm just like, I say out loud, I'm just like, we didn't sign up for this when we were setting off the fire extinguishers. This is not what I signed up for. This is just grits. It just comes when you get breakfast in the South. This just comes. So anyway, I feel like this is a very important conversation. It's not the only conversation because we're talking about sacred love as well as physical love. This is around physical relationships and pair bonding stuff. But does anybody else have anything here before we go on? Because it's so juicy here and painful, and so many are suffering because we're told this is the answer, and it's an answer. I think it is the answer. It's just the answer of death and resurrection. It's the answer of real love. not happy day, Valentine's Day love. Anybody?
We're going a different direction than I thought we were going to go. And I'm brought back to a dear friend who isn't walking the earth anymore. And I, when we knew she was toward the end of her life, I said, I'm going to go see my Susie, because she's the one I complain about my husband to. And I realized that she'd been through 4 marriages. I'd met her. It's like, she just like, I don't know how you do it. And it's like, oh, I really didn't think that wasn't one of my options. And it was so precious that the love she and I have is a whole different place than a piece of paper and a commitment before others. And that's the love that that I also have for my spouse, that I have for my children. But they're my children, so I have to, and he's my house spouse because I have to. And then there's me.
Yeah.
And somehow over these last seasons, I've decided to be my biggest fan. And it's freeing. It's so, so freeing that I can now be my Susie's fan, my Wendy's fan, my kids' fan, my spouse's fan, the lady I met and had problems with and got around it. And there's something about love that's just, you, Claire, you gave that list of words, and it's wonder.
Mm.
It's that wonder that that is what, I mean, there's happiness, but that's sort of like bliss and like, yeah, well, that goes. But and in the marriage relationship, there's disgust, not so much fear and anger, not so much sadness. But when you get to the wonder place, that's the place. I'm picturing, it's weird because who knows, Portland, Oregon, Wonder Bread Company had this, it was uniform how they looked. The bags of bread had these little polka dots of multiple colors. And I can just picture a bag of Wonder Bread, white with red and blue and yellow and whatever, like 3 probably colors on there. And that's where I want to live. And that exists. That just is a present thing. And I didn't have a word for it like that. I just took that from your list, but it's like, that's my sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's where I have landed, and it makes so much difference. It lets me throw my pebbles in the water of all this weirdness that you could listen to if you want to, but I'm listening to very little of it. But I get to say, no matter what's going on, it's all going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And even the people that fell out of the sky in Washington, D.C. A couple days ago, bam, there were a bunch of kids that were marvelous ice skaters that didn't have a moment to think about, oh, I'm going away now, and crossed over immediately, with no, it's weird to say, with no trauma, no drama. It just happened, and they were out of their body, and just living in their spirit. And those, when I heard about it, I was right in the news loop right then. My feeling went to family and people who would be together, like fellow travelers who are going to find themselves, whoops, I'm not on a plane anymore. But that family love was the picture that kept coming to me, and that just rubbing elbows and loving on each other. And that was at least that was some of the people that were involved in the plane. And going from, I'm looking at, that's so weird. I have a deck of cards here. And
I need to wrap up soon.
Okay, I'm sorry. The edge of it says flying through the veil. And I think wonder is the flying through the veil of love.
Gorgeous.
That brings it all together for me.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, do you have anything before we go on?
I guess the world needs more white men who know when to shut up. So I won't share anything today.
This is your contribution to love. Thank you.
I have something I'd love to pop in if we have time.
Yeah, Claire.
Well, I mean, you opened our conversation with talking about the difficult times that we're living in, and I think that this is where, if we want to go back to the great sacred texts, our challenge right now is there are a lot of people out there doing things that we don't like, and liking people is not the same as loving. So I think that that's a challenge for all of us, is that we have to love our neighbor as ourselves, but we do not have to like them necessarily. So I think that's an important distinction that we all need to make, because loving them means, I think, treating them with dignity and dignity and respect, but not necessarily, that's like the opposite of infatuation. The way that we feel about some of the people who are doing some of the things out there.
Right. I thou, and you over there have an opinion or behavior that I don't like, but I still respect you as a human being.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. It is kind of opposite of infatuation.
Well, and the thing is, one reason there's so much hate out there is it's juicy. It gets your frontal lobes stimulated, or cortex, or whatever. It's I have a friend who said her daughter as a teenager used to, when she had a big assignment at school, she would come in at 11 o'clock at night, and rage at her mother, just about nothing, and she just had to sit there and take it. And then she eventually realized that her daughter was like firing herself up so she could get her project written. Right. And you're like, wow. And so there are a lot of people out there who are rageaholics at the moment, and it's enlivening, it's stimulating, it makes you feel alive, makes you feel like you've got a purpose. I mean, it's makes love look like look namby-pamby, right?
Right. So thank you. Yeah, I had a friend call me the other day, long-term, big Jesus lover, meaning well, liberal Episcopalian. And she's just like, I don't know what to do. There's this person, this person who is, feels like the enemy because of beliefs. And she didn't say it like that. She said the things, but I don't need to say the things. And I was like, I'm just like, well, what do you need? What do you want? I'm like trying not to like be too whatever. But it came down to, I was just like, it's really fortunate that Jesus talked about this. It's like to love our enemies and do good to those who harm you. And I mean, it's not the only person saying these things, but you know, she can hear Jesus. That's why I talk Jesus. And but I just feel like he's a really good example because these people, he had a lot of people against his ministry. The reason he was there, the difference he was meaning to make about between people and God. There were a lot of people saying, being in the way. And he was like, gotta love them. Don't have to be nice to them. Nice, not nice, but have to love them. And then, you know, there's like he eventually um was tortured and died. And like this is the context he's talking about loving your enemies. He's not talking about like, oh, they, you know, they're growing a tree that I don't like next door. You know, like whatever. This is like serious enemies. And I, you know, in the US right now, it might feel like that's where we are, but it's not exactly where we are even. It's like, how can we talk to each other? How can we find common ground? How can we stop projecting all the bad things on them and all the good things on us? No matter what quote side that's on, that's what's happening in a big way. And so to come back inside to neutral and amused spiritual focus and say, what's the way? I feel like it's just so helpful. So thanks for bringing that up, Claire. It's urgent right now. And for me, I feel like in some ways the opposite of love is judgment. It's again, it's that projection. And that's what I feel when I'm going head to head with my partner. You know? It's like I'm right and he's wrong. And he's hurting me. He's hurting me. So I'm hurting him. Repeat. So anyway,
Take a break. Back up, everybody.
I do want to say one thing, and then we'll see what happens. I really love the way, Jen, you put wonder together. And for me, all those things, I mean, in my primary relationship, I have all of these things. Yes, disgust, but all these things, anger and sadness and fear. And in the course of a lifetime, I have them a lot. And actually, as I like getting conscious about that has helped me. It's like, why am I reactive? Oh, because I'm afraid. Or whatever. But the wonder is really cool. And I just do want to say, there's a lot of people that are doing something in Christianity called deconstruction. There's a lot of people going out of religious or spiritual into agnostic or atheist, and like all good, I don't care. The really fascinating thing for me is that wonder that is part of like infatuation. It's opening. It's an opening. It's an opening emotion. It's a curious emotion. And it's also so much for me like worship. Like for me, worship is like if I'm really making love to somebody, it's worship. If I'm really available in nature, it feels like worship. And it had me remember David Foster Wallace. He has this talk. I think it was to a, you know, that people talk to graduating kids. And it basically it's about the only choice we have is what to worship.
Mm.
Mm.
And I highly recommend it. You just look on YouTube. But really, like, for me, love, that's where love is. Where is the bliss? Where do I lay down my life? Where is the experience of oneness? Where is the curiosity to go beyond, like with a partner or a family member or someone I love, to go beyond? Why would I go beyond? You're just a fucking asshole. Like, it's like, what gets me beyond that? You are just too much. I just can't stand it anymore, right? Like, that's like, what gets me beyond that? It's like the curiosity, the wonder, the draw of the worship, love, bliss, oneness experience that I know is in there somewhere. Can I open to it, to the fullness of that person beyond this one little part where I think that they're the bad guy?
You know, Annie Lamott says there are three kinds of prayer: please, thank you, and wow.
That's awesome.
The song keeps coming to my mind. I wish I could do the doo-wop for it. I wonder who wrote the book of love. And it's like, it's the wonder and the love. I really see that tie in so deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that drive, for me, that's where the drive is. Like, I am super, like, I've always wanted love. I feel like more and more I experience that. I always wanted the validation, the truth. I feel like more and more I experience that. I always wanted, but what's the bow on that? And I think wonder, that worship somewhere in there really is, and I'm still so driven. I'm still so, like, hungry to live in that place of, wow. Yeah, wow. And Jeff is reminding me, like, it's not just the emotional stuff, it's the physical stuff, right? We suffer. There's pain. There's brokenness. Like, this is what it is to be human, unless we have the misfortune of, we're gone. We go to sleep and don't wake up, or we are on a plane and then we're not. We all go through this incredible breaking down of our bodies, and this very confronting thing where we fall down and we can't get up. We fall down and we don't heal. Stuff happens and we stay broken or ill, and still I find that life is worth it. So worth it. And, like, I think when I was little, I wouldn't have gotten it. It's just like, if you're in that much pain, like, exit stage left, what the hell? Right? But it's just like, but I think it's this place of love and truth and wonder that we're talking about, that I think falls under love. I mean, I don't know where else to put it. One could say it falls under love. It's just, like, so worth it, even with the bullshit.
And Jen, thank you for making that connection.
Oh,
wonder and love.
Thank you for bringing that list. And your three types of prayer. It's like, oh, you've got those little, you have those little precious things that are, you're strung together a nice little small pearl necklace for me.
Thank you.
Really nice pearls there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna say goodbye now.
Okay, Jen, I want to validate you and say, several years ago, Jen and I had a long conversation about being the love you want, and it will eventually come out in a book, part of the book. But thank you so much for that, Jen. And if anybody who is into this work wants to have access to that, I can let you have access. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next month, if not before.
We'll connect.
Hello.
Oh, oh. Bye-bye.
Besos.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Anything else you guys have to say?
I feel very complete. I've enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for being there, silent white guy.
I hope you both have a great week. Probably see you in the next few days at our next meditation if you're there.
Awesome.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Miss Claire, are you done?
I'm done. Are you done?
I could talk about this forever and a day, but
Yeah.
I'm going to shut this down.
Yeah.